So when I first found out I got my job, it was just really exciting because when you take a bet on yourself of that level, especially somebody who works in independent schools, when you have no real job lined up after a certain point, it was really scary to do that. And there was a couple moments where I almost was close to just saying, like, I'll stay another year. It's fine, just because of that fear. But it was nice to be able to get the job that I think was the right fit for myself. And gave me everything I really wanted, which was to work remotely. So I was very thrilled. It was a big day.
Vanessa landed a great instructional design role at UCSF Health. And you may be wondering, how do you go from aspiring instructional designer to landing your first role? Well, stick around because Vanessa is going to share the story behind her standout portfolio. I'm Sabrina Gonzales, and I'm one of the Bootcamp pros on Devlin's team. And I had the pleasure of working with Vanessa in the Bootcamp, getting to give her feedback on deliverables and seeing all of the impressive work. But I'm going to let Vanessa go ahead and introduce herself. So go ahead, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about you and what led you to instructional design.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa, and I have spent about 15 years working in an independent school, specifically kind of as a technology integrator and a digital arts teacher. I even created a makerspace program for one point, which gave me a lot of curriculum design work. And as I was thinking about how to kind of challenge myself more in a similar yet different career, I was really drawn to instructional design because it was going to give me those avenues to explore topics in a more richer and meaningful way and to really kind of spend more of my time with adults having those higher level conversations than I was having with students. And like being a technology integrator, I was able to train a lot of teachers on technology and software and skills. So I was already in that world, which made it so organic. So when I was really thinking about my exit plan, I knew that I needed to give myself some time to really meaningfully learn the software. And I love technology. I love learning new visual skills and technologies. So having an opportunity to really learn storyline well was something that I really enjoy doing. And I really initially thought that I was going to teach myself all of this stuff on my own, but was very grateful that I ended up doing the boot camp because it really created that scaffolding to do it on my terms, especially with the asynchronous aspect of it. And I can't imagine having pulled this off all by myself without having a thought partner with Sabrina to really help me with so many of the details to really make my portfolio shine in the end.
Yeah, thank you for sharing how you made your way to instructional design. I think a lot of teachers can really relate to that, right? A lot of teachers, we start in our classroom and then there are things that you excel at. And so you start leading professional developments or helping train others. And then you realize like, oh, I kind of like working with adults and I kind of like delivering information in this other way. And that is such a nice transition to instructional design. I think a lot of us that have made the transition or are working on it kind of follow that same pathway too. Um, yeah, and your background in teaching like the digital arts, I think it definitely shows in your work. So I'm excited to show that off because like with the custom assets that you've made and things like that, I think that definitely sets you apart as an instructional designer because not everyone has that like visual skill, something to definitely work on. So I think that definitely like helps give you a boost in the market for sure. But you're off the market now because you've landed a role. All right, so here we have your portfolio. And I think it's great. I love the bright orange because I do think it really represents your personality. This like fun, energetic, just really brings you in and it's really warm. And then the same with your image. So what made you choose some of like the different design elements that you chose?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I was really stressed out about the whole like headshot being on the website. That was something that I really was playing with, like maybe not doing it when I was like iterating different ideas. And luckily, I was teaching in a classroom that had a green screen. So I just had like a photo shoot with myself because I also tried to do the AI headshots thing where you like submit 12 like selfies. And I was like, maybe this will be the way I do it because it was so cheap. But they were the strangest images. The clothing they put you in is bizarre, like, especially for like a creative role. I was like, why am I wearing a beige suit? So that was one thing that I really struggled with, but I'm really happy with my solo photo shoot. That happened in the end. but I really wanted a warm color and making sure like that accessibility feature was there with the color and font. It's so hard to really think about the right color tone, especially keeping it to like two, what's going to really pop on screen. And I also just looked at a lot of websites on the internet for inspiration to see like what I wanted color wise. So I'm glad that this worked out. But it was hard to find somehow like with the hex codes, the colors kept changing. And luckily Sabrina was able to find some other wares where it was like slightly off, but not quite.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the accessibility piece too. In that like last hiring manager survey we did, they talked about like usability, which I think when we think usability, it's like, are things like really labeled well? Do the buttons make sense? Is like the layout good? But it's also important to think about like, can they even see these color combinations? And so thinking about that accessibility is important. So I'm glad you highlighted that. Um, One of the things that I really love about your portfolio too is like when you first land here, like it's very clear what is going on here. Like we know we can get to your work, we can learn more about you, we can get in contact. And we have like two ways to get in contact. So I love that. I think that's a great way to pull people in. The logo, I do think is like designy but simplistic, feels very unique. Um, and then here, like getting to know more about what you are, what you do, what you believe in, your value, I think is great. And the hierarchy is wonderful. It's all very, very easy to navigate. And then these fun little just like design elements of like having this scrolling bar to pull us into that label, I think is great. We have the projects, we have what people are saying, which being able to get social proof on your portfolio, I think is super important. So that people are also like backing your work. It's not just what you said. And then we have this nice consistency with these banners again. And then this part down here, I think feels very professional. Like if you look at bigger companies, footers, they feel very much like this. So I think you did a very, very good job. I don't know if there's anything else on here that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, I really had fun doing it. I really did like using Squarespace. I hadn't used it before. I had a WordPress teaching portfolio before, and I really did like Squarespace most of the time. There was definitely some moments, I think, towards the end when we were trying to like make everything really consistent where it was like really putting up a fight. But I feel like in all their templates were really fun, especially those moving banners. So having that as an option just to pull from was really great.
Yeah. And was there any like reason you chose the font you did, or was just you were looking for something that was like easy to read or
Ooh, I'm a big sans serif fan, so anything with Helvetica or Arial family, I'm gonna just really go for generally. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm happy with just the visuals. Like I'm such a visual person and I was looking forward to building this. So to get my vision to come true is really exciting because it's a lot of work. It's a big task. You don't realize it until like you're like, oh my God, there's still some like small thing that I didn't catch. And it's so nice to have someone to help you with that because I think my friends were all really impressed with it that I did this pretty much by myself. Clearly I had Sabrina to partner with, but they were really surprised, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think the portfolio is always like such a work in progress. Like you're always adding things and like continuing to stay consistent throughout, which you have done with the pages you have here already. Like there's lots of really great consistency. I brought us over to the about page because one of the things that I think is important to bring out is so again, we have this like value statement, what you're about. But in the about section, something that I see a lot of former teachers specifically doing that isn't beneficial is they talk about like where they came from with their background in education, which isn't a bad thing. But then as you continue reading, they still sound like a teacher. And that's tough because this is our instructional design portfolios. You want to sound like an instructional designer. And I think you do a very good job of that because even just scanning, like I'm seeing these words that I would expect to see from an instructional designer. And so you've done a really good job of that. Um, how how was it trying to switch that mindset for you from teacher to instructional designer?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And I think I looked at a lot of the portfolios that Devlin has on his website to get like really ideas, especially about this page specifically. And I was definitely really scared of being too much overtly a teacher, and that even carried over into interviews. And my friend, I mentioned this in another Devlin Peck interview where it's like he just used the term like, oh, I'm in a school-based instructional designer. and like kind of using that as like my perspective was really helpful. But I just really wanted in this about me to highlight the skills I've used because I have such a disparate background because I did study film in college. I've also taught animation. I have like done so many visual things where I think like instructional design, you're telling stories, you're creating immersive experiences that are experiential. And I think it's nice to be able to actually talk about those things that have really got me to the point of where I am, not just the fact that I've been in a classroom for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You've done a great job of like, yeah, really taking all of that like back experience you had from different things and translating it, saying like, here's the tools that I come with. Here's how it's going to help you with your business. I think you did a great job with that. So yeah, if you're looking for inspiration on how to write your about me section, definitely check out Vanessa's portfolio. It's a really good example. Another thing that you do well throughout your portfolio is having your call to action. So like here, like we get to learn more about you, but exactly, let's get back to business. We get back to going to see your work and you direct the viewer, which anytime you can get people to go back to check out your work on your portfolio, you definitely want to do that, right? That's what this is about, is like, here's what I can do for you. So I think that's a great piece that you do on every page. You have that there. Okay. So we've seen the consistency. We see these call to actions. Let's get to some of the exciting stuff. Let's get to the work. Let's take a look at the portfolio. So again, with the consistency throughout, you've done a good job of keeping everything like the sizing of your fonts are the same. We know like where we're going to find headers. Everything is like left aligned, helps guide us. And then these are wonderful screenshots. That's another thing that can be tough, is getting these really crisp mock-ups. Did you run into any trouble at all when you were pulling for mock-ups or anything like that?
My hardest thing was finding mockups with the consistent like
Mm.
aspect ratio so they looked nice on the page. That was the hardest thing. Sometimes they're a little long. I didn't want to spend too much time in Photoshop kind of playing with things. And that was the thing I struggled. Like I like for a while on my desktop, I was like, oh my God, there's so many mockups, different versions to see which ones look good together. Like not too many hands or too many. So that's just like the way I visually work through things where I'm like, oh, why did it not all look super similar as you scroll down?
So let's talk through some of these projects. So this top one here, using inclusive language to create successful sales. If you've watched the video about unique projects, e-learning projects, you will have seen this one featured in there. It's a great project. And you've even got to hear Vanessa talk about this project in that video too. But we'll explore this here in a second. But let's keep going through. Tell us a little bit about this one here. Oh, Vanessa, the shades of wine.
Oh, I had so much fun building this one. Just because I don't even know where it came about. I had just gone to Sonoma and done some wine tastings with a friend. And it was fun. I don't know like where I kind of got it from, but I really like that I chose it because I initially tried to do a drag and drop, which it's not accessible. And Sabrina was the one who's like, hey, like it's something we need to keep in mind. And then I switched it to a drop down menu. And the traction I got in interviews, being able to talk about me transitioning this from being inclusive to from not being accessible to accessible was a really great talking point and showed how passionate I was around accessibility. So like having something that you've experimented with in that capacity, I think can really highlight your skills in this field. So it was in a drop down menu week wasn't that much harder. Like it was kind of a fun challenge and I just loved the way it looked. And I just had so much fun like researching wine and coming up with colors. I even started a white wine one when I was like, like I don't need to have another one. I need to focus on other stuff because I was like, this is fun. So, and it was nice to be able to come up with a study guide to show that I can create visual aids. So I think it's a simple piece, but I think it really shows like the skills that I want to highlight.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. And yeah, using the shades of the red keeps everything so cohesive and consistent. I even love just like two fonts. That's it. Two fonts for a little bit of contrast. Yeah, the study guide is great. It's very simple, straightforward, easy to refer to and read. Yeah, and the drop downs are so smooth. And I think it did a really good job too of replacing that drag and drop. So where it did make it more accessible. And yeah, it's really, really smooth. I think it turned out really well. And then your other project is the Redwoods tab interaction.
very California inspired.
Yes.
Mm. And this one, I spent a lot of time on figuring out kind of again to keep it really clean. Like I had a lot of background images in the first, and I tried a lot of different ways to make sure you could still see something. But again, is it clear? So that one took a lot of iterations in the process of getting it to look the way I wanted it to look, especially while having those points really obvious and like crystal clear and coming up with icons. And I know this is like another inspiration I forget from one of the portfolio pieces in the boot camp at Devlin, kind of is an example of as tab interaction. And I use that as like, oh, okay, that's a great way to like kind of build off of something. So it's always fun to look at other people's portfolio pieces to really get a sense of what you think you should do. And if I want to be doing more design work, I wanted to make sure that was really highlighted.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that like we always talk about with portfolios is that whatever you're showcasing should show the kind of work that you want to do. What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? And so we see like these varieties of e-learning experiences. And then we also want to make sure that they're solving problems. So even though it's kind of like more fun, people may not know, right? How to like pair things or like what it is or which one makes sense of the wines. I could see this being like a great quick, like if you're like a bartender, even just this guide, right, to have access to. Okay, let's take a quick look at your flagship project. We'll go through kind of quickly. Like I said, we did highlight it in this unique e-learning video, so definitely check it out if you want a closer sneak peek. Um, yeah, if you want anything you want to tell us about this one, Vanessa.
Yeah, like I had really done a lot of DEI training in education over the years. And that was something that I really wanted to focus on for this project to use those skills, just because I think as an instructional designer, to have that inclusive language as part of your toolkit is really important. So that was like the thing that I kind of knew I wanted to focus on as I started this project. And it's funny, like I recently had experience or when I was building this, like I started experiencing microaggressions on my own. And I was like, oh, this is so funny. Like it just like was I went to a diversity conference and I'm a white presenting Latina. And it was funny where I had like that happened a couple of times where people were like, oh, but where are you? What group are you going to try and sleuth me out of like where I fit in? And it was interesting to have that while I was working on this at the same time. So it was like nice to think about because I really wanted to maybe work and do a retail job. Like I was like dreaming of working at Sephora or something. So I was like, ooh, I'll do a retail focus to try and get in that little direction. But now I work at a hospital. But I think that's such a core value of what I'm doing is around having that language around diversity, equity, inclusion. So I know that was like a big draw for me getting my job as well as having this example.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know you talked about with the wine one having the switching from a drag and drop to the drop down for accessibility. But even just again thinking about it like on a bigger scale, like this shows that you are considerate about the diversity and all these different things. I think this was like not just a smart topic because it's something that you're passionate about, something you were experiencing, something you wanted to share, but it also just shows like your value as a person and what you're going to bring to different businesses. So I think it was a great topic and it's very well done. All right, so a little bit more about your bootcamp journey. What was your experience like in the bootcamp? So with the course content, the community, working with me and the rest of the Double Effect team.
Yeah, I think it was just really exciting to like jump in. I started it right as my summer vacation was starting. So that was like my goal was to really spend that summer getting through as much as I could. And I just remember the first few projects just being like, oh, this is so cool to program. And like just the interactivity got me like really excited about the software in general. So that I think was really great. It was nice to like once I got the storyline lab out of the way to start actually collaborating with Sabrina to think about like the project focus was to have that like back and source, which was really nice just to have that kind of just an option to have somebody to run your ideas off, and there's like so much value. You can't put a price tag on having that kind of relationship as you're really trying to build something that's going to be hopefully get you a job. So I think that overall, like I was so impressed with the boot camp package. And even now, like I always am going back to it to refer to things and be like, oh, this whole new section has been like built out now. And just having access to that for always, I think is just such a great tool. Like it's invaluable as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So talking a little bit about the job that you're working in now, feel free to share like whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So I'm on the learning and organization development team working at UCSF. So I'm on the health side of things. So I'm working with a lot of things related to the hospital, especially with workforce development and creating trainings for people who are new to being in a professional work environment, trying to learn what soft skills might be, just really trying to support these people from underserved communities who are really looking for careers and hopefully finding placement within the UCS system where they can really, really flourish and figure out what career path they want to be on. So it's nice that I'm working in a role that is really there to help people, and not just like I was ready to go full corporate, and here I ended up like being in a position where I'm actually really helping people, and that feels really nice. And it's a really passionate group of people who I get to be in a team with, which is really exciting. So I'm very grateful that this was the path that was for me.
All right. So last kind of question, a little bit more on the fun side, maybe. So you're in this new role. What are you most excited about with this new role? And it doesn't have to just be on the job, but benefits of the job as well.
It's been really fun just nerding out with people talking about storyline. Like I really love having those conversations, and also just like not being tied to that school calendar and taking vacations when I want. Like it's just so exciting to have that on the table of like, no, you can work from some other location and it's great. And you're not so fixed to this life of teaching, and giving a real life of flexibility, while doing something that I'm actually really passionate about. It's just been such a game changer. So it's worth the risk, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I will say.
Do you have any last tips for people who are transitioning to instructional design?
I don't think so. I think like the boot camp really, prepares you for that. And I think the feedbacks of getting feedback on your courses and your projects and your portfolio is something that I didn't really think about when I initially joined the boot camp. I was thinking more of like getting those skills, but like it's really crucial to get feedback and really make sure that everything just looks consistently clean because you want to highlight that professionalism that you're going to be bringing to a company.
Thank you again to Vanessa for sharing your story with us and sharing your work. It was really great to hear how you went from digital arts teacher with a background in film and animation to instructional designer at a hospital in a very fulfilling role that I think matches your passions and your talents really well. In my conversation with Vanessa, she'd also mentioned that the person who hired her told her a little bit about the hiring process when she was going through it, that they had 3 portfolios that they shared with the team, and Vanessa's is the one that rose to the top. So if you're ready to make the transition to instructional design and you want to work on making a standout portfolio that's going to get you noticed, but you feel like you need a little help, come join us in the bootcamp. Our next cohort is starting very soon. Applications are open right now. You can go to idbootcamp.com to learn more, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.